Sorry. How are you?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, by the way, this is my friend Mansur. So if you've got any...
I think I've seen you on YouTube a few
Okay,
times.
cool. Yeah.
Now we will see you here because whoever comes and speaks corner, they're on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't ask your name.
Trey.
Trey, nice to meet you. I'm Naz.
Naz? Okay.
What's your name? Mohammed. Nice to meet you.
Trey's actually an ex-Jehovah's Witness. Have you ever met?
We have met Jehovah's Witnesses that came into our door,
Like Cecil.
and In fact, there's a very nice friend of ours for many years, Cecil. How many years we've known him? 20 years, even more.
Longer than that.
Longer than that, probably. Yeah.
And you guys talk back and forth.
Yeah. Whenever we see him, we talk. But he's cool. Yeah. So
when you see Cecil.
He doesn't come here anymore because this place has become so toxic. He doesn't like it.
So wait. There was a Jehovah's Witness who would come here and he would talk to other people.
Yes.
And sometimes he'll be on the Muslim side, debating the Trinity.
Trinitarians.
Yeah.
He will support the Muslims against Trinitarians. Yeah.
You have to understand how mind-blowing that is.
Yeah.
Because witnesses are not told to pretty much debate. And they're very much not told...
Cecil was a maverick, like he
kind of
did his own thing.
way?
Yeah.
Did anybody see him?
What do you mean?
Or no, I mean by that is like...
But when we said a long time ago, there wasn't this public social media exposure like that.
Okay,
It could be that because of that's we didn't see him. But he doesn't come here anymore. But it's So it's interesting. So what are your current understanding then? If you've ex-Jehovah's Witness, what do you currently believe? Become a Muslim or?
I guess I'm more interested. Do you know who Jordan Peterson is? Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
No, Jordan Peterson is not a religion, right? So what is your religious identity now?
So I guess I would say deist, but I would say that like religion is important. We are innately religious animals, and pretty much we have religious concepts inside of us, inside of our psyche.
Yeah. So how do you practice the religion, and which one is to practiced?
I'm figuring that out, but I would. You're not gonna like my answer, but I would say like you can. Each religion is just sort of a choice, a flip of the coin.
Okay.
There's better flips of the coin.
Does that sound a good approach in determining the best religion to choose from?
Well, I would say that in general, I would look at least what is the most beneficial religions that are outweighing the costs, pretty much.
Okay. So your approach seems to be what benefits you, what not benefits you. Shouldn't our approach should be based on what is true and what is not true? Because you can have a religion, totally man-made,
right,
and it has no truth attached to it.
Right,
it's just simply religion is saying, you know what, be honest, live a good life, and that's it. You can make a man-made religion, no problem, with some good values.
Right, yeah.
But it has no truth attached to it from the divine, from the one who created us,
right, yeah,
and the one who's going to account us for what we do, and reward us for our good things and punish us for our evil things.
Right.
So, when a man-made religion,
yes,
you have no authority to say this is what God accepts from you or rejects from you. So how do we then take an approach like you've done? I mean, I want to know with what reasonable grounds do you have to say this is a better approach than an approach in which it goes into saying let's identify truth from falsehood between all these religions because they cannot all be true.
Right, but I wouldn't approach religion as a true thing. I would approach them as a set of rituals that pretty much thousands of people before us have been doing it.
Could they be wrong?
Yeah, but I'm not approaching religion as wrong. So, for example, right, do you guys ever sing the national anthem?
I may not have.
Right. Do you care if it's true if you're singing the national anthem?
National anthem is not going to save me from the hellfire.
Right.
My
but
concern
I
is
would
not.
disagree on the hellfire part.
No,
Yeah.
what I'm saying, my concern is if there is a creator who created us
Yes.
with a purpose of our creation,
Yes.
and there is accountability linked with it,
Yes.
and accountability is eternal hellfire or eternal paradise, then I want to know what actions and what beliefs is going to lead me to either of this.
Well, where do we
National-
get it?
national anthem.
I will go with you on the step one because that's easy.
Which is what?
Step two is always going to be the problem of what is the true religion, right? God is the easy part. We can get there. We can have better arguments. Step two, though, where we're going to say this religion is more true than the other one, that's going to be very difficult. I feel like you can both agree with that.
Why would it be difficult? Because truth stands clear from error and falsehood.
Okay, if something is
Truth
true,
itself will be manifestly obvious that this is true.
Okay.
For example, someone says this tripod is God. We should worship it. You know, we should worship it Monday morning and Thursday evening, twice a week. It will be obvious that this is not God, not worthy of
okay.
worship.
Well, so you're using an English term of God, right, in a 20th century concept, right?
No, I'm using the word
Did-
God as is understood. If we don't understand what God means, then we can say the originator of the heavens and the earth, of the cosmos. The originator, the one who brought the universe into existence, that is the being that we're talking about. You can talk about the creator, the originator,
Okay.
the fashioner.
Now we have more distinctions.
Yeah.
But you just gave me a definition, right? And then you gave me some more clarifications. And you said, this is obvious. And then I pointed, hey, wait, you're using your understandings in your environment to say it's obvious.
Since when God is an understanding where God is not the creator of the universe? In which religion are you talking about in the contemporary sense? Today, when people talk about God, they don't talk about this tripod as God.
Right, well, okay.
In the colloquial sense,
yeah.
God is understood to be the originator of the heavens and the earth.
Right. But like,
That's what I used it.
You can understand my point at the very least in saying that you say today, you say God, you're using these terms as you've understood them coming up from a context, right?
I can use language which you're familiar with.
Right.
So I cannot use a term that you're not. If I say, for example, let's talk about Ar-Rahman.
Yeah.
Do you know what Ar-Rahman is?
I wouldn't know.
Of course not.
Right.
So that's why I'm using terminology that is commonly known.
Right.
And if there is a disagreement or misunderstanding or confusion with this term, we can qualify it.
Yes.
So if I say the originator of the cosmos,
Yeah.
then you have a better qualification of what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't mean a human being which people worship because he's a good guy.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to make the point that when you say something is truth, it's right there.
Yeah, so if I use the word, if
we
I
just
didn't
had a
use,
disagreement
if
about
I use the word because I assumed you understood what God is as understood in everyday sense.
Yes.
Fine. So if I had used the originator of the heavens and the earth, cannot be this
Yeah.
tripod. So once we sort out definitions,
Yes.
then it will be obvious, right? What is obviously not true.
I hope so. Yeah.
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 So in that sense, we can offer you the concept of God in Islam.
Okay.
Okay, where God is the one who brought everything into existence. So he's the one who's called Badi'us Samawati wal Ard, the originator of the heavens and the earth.
Okay.
And having brought us into existence, we are totally dependent and reliant on our Creator. So whatever reason the Creator has created us, we must fulfill it. Otherwise, we will be an arrogant, stubborn individuals, trying to do our own things when we did not even have our own life, which was given to us for a reason. So we need to know what purpose of our life is, and our Creator tells us in Islam is to be grateful to Him, to worship Him. Okay, the essence of worship is gratitude, to be totally thankful and grateful to Him, and gives us guidance in how to conduct our life. And if we follow that guidance, then we'll be happy and successful in this world and the world to come.
Wait, so in the Quran, God promises you, if you do all the right things, that you will be happy and successful in this life.
Yeah, in this, He will make you in this life and in the afterlife. Okay. In fact, those who reject God, God even constricts them in such a way. Ma'ishatan donka, I think this is how the word is used in the Quran, where He constricts their life and their life becomes miserable.
Okay.
If you don't accept God and if you become stubborn and so on, if you don't follow the path of God and you choose otherwise, then your path becomes so constricted as if you're ascending into the sky. Like if you're going in high altitude, how do you feel in your heart? So your life is going to be like miserable. That's why look at the people who are godless. Many people, they commit suicide. Why? Because this materialistic mindset and so on, it makes them so miserable. There's no content and peace in their hearts anymore. Okay? So when you seek the path of God and you trod along this path, God expands your breast, your heart, and you feel, the guidance coming in, the peace and tranquility coming in.
Gotcha. So, do you have the story of Job in Islam?
Yeah, there's a prophet called Ayub. Yes.
Yeah. So how
Job.
Yeah.
Okay. How would you factor that in? Because Job was a righteous man, yet he still suffered.
Yeah. So suffering is not something like which is bad. For example, pain.
Oh, okay.
Right.
For the greater good.
So something is necessary. Okay. The elements which is the what is called the binary things is necessary, right, wrong, and so on. So you appreciate better. God placed us and didn't just give us a free certificate to say, go to heaven just because you say, I think you're God. No. He wants us to really prove to ourselves that we are righteous in our conduct, best in our conduct, in our deeds. And so we are righteous in our submission to Him. So He'll test us. God says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. I hope I've remembered this ayat of the Quran, because the Quran is in Arabic, okay? God says, we will test from something off with fear and hunger, loss of life and fruits and crops and so on and so forth, and give glad tidings those who are patient. So there is going to be an element of test and tribulations. Ayub, or Prophet Job alayhi salam, went through a test. Even the prophets go through the testing, so that even the prophets go through testing, phase of testing. God will test them so that they are patient. They are, so this is God's way of preparing them.
So, are you saying that
everyone is tested?
Well, could a test lead in death? Could a test lead in death?
No. God doesn't test people to lead to death, because that defeats the purpose of the test.
Well,
but
if you could say that the test will lead into the next life.
No. What I'm saying is the test, as I said, even with the loss of life. God says even loss of life. For example, in a family, a child might die. That can be a test for the parents, whether they are still grateful to God and patient with God or not, or simply they become like, why is it me, and so on and so forth, right? Because God wants people to understand, that the life belongs to Him, to God, not to you. He can take the life whenever He wants. Are you still thankful to Him for the life that God has given, and the things that He's given as a provision and so on and so forth, and being grateful to Him for as He is as the one who's provider of all things. So if there's a loss of life, it can be a test to the parents, for example. So some test is of loss of life. Some test is of something like Prophet Job. What happened to Prophet Ayub alayhi salam? He was afflicted with some disease, right? He was so ill, like skin with some skin disease. I don't know what's it exactly called in English, but it was like skin rotting away, something like this, right? No one would come near him. But he was patient. He never asked God, "Oh God, cure me of this."
Right, but who caused that? Who caused the boils?
No. God is the one putting trust in tribulations. So this can be, as I said, everyone gets tested.
Okay. That's a clarification. I guess. Okay, so here's how I understand things, right? In the Quran, don't you believe that that let's say someone has never heard of Islam, right? Will they be put in the hellfire?
Okay, very good question. So God tells us that He does not punish anyone unless He sends them a warner. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two: every nation has been sent a warner. Okay. So if you marry this together, that means no one will be in a state where there was no one. Now there might be an interim state with call the Ahl al-Fatra, where there's in between the two prophets, for example, what happens to them, for example.
Yes.
Okay. In a situation like this, there will still be hopefully remnants of the message from the previous prophet and messenger.
Right. Okay.
If even that was absent, there's an additional thing God has equipped people with.
Yeah.
The intellect.
Okay. Yes.
If people did not use their intellect,
Yes.
because if they did, they would have come to the realization and acceptance that there is a creator, and that creator is one and only, and is the creator who is worthy of our worship. If they did not use that faculty of intellect and the application of the intellect, then they will be punished. But if people, I don't know, if people did and didn't come to the right realization, or their faculty was impaired, for example, they were insane, whatever, then of course God is not going to punish them, because God says He is just, and He will not be unjust to anyone, even to the least. So they will have their justice done in the day of judgment. We cannot simply blanketly say that everyone's fate is going to be like this, because some people may be such that, the truth never really came to them. So God's not going to punish them because the truth didn't arrive to them.
Right.
Okay. So God will either do a test in the day of judgment, perhaps with them, or He will be merciful to them. God is the one to make that decision, not us.
Okay. So let's say someone hadn't heard about that, right? And let's say they have a pagan religion, right? Do you think that they would be better off following a pagan religion or doing nothing, not believing in God, not doing anything?
Okay. So you're creating a dichotomy in terms where not believing in God is also a form of associating partner with God, where instead of giving the right and gratitude to God, you're giving it to something else, like your own self, your government, your country. So that is a punishable crime, just like a punishable crime when you associate partner with God in paganism.
So I'm confused, but you said that there were people who would not have a warner, or at least who did not.
You said someone who doesn't do anything means, who do they give gratitude to? If they don't give it to God, who are they giving it to? Their own self, their own ego, their leaders, their countrymen, their whatever?
They're a pagan. So let's say
pagan is one group. The other group I'm talking about.
Yeah, so let's say that I'm in a far off tribe, I'm a pagan, right? And either I participate in these pagan rituals, right? Or I say, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to separate myself from this pagan.
That's different. Because we even know before the advent of our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, there were people who are known as Hanifs.
Yes.
Okay? They are people of like Fitra, in which they dissociated themselves from worshiping of any pagan gods or anything like this, but they had the concept of one God. So they were inclined to the worship of one God. Okay?
Yes.
So this is something that God will accept from them. But if you have someone who rejects even that, then God will be just with them, and if they reject it, not taking that step, you dissociate for them pagans, and then instead of accepting that there is a creator, there is a fashioner and governor of all affairs, you said like, I don't do anything, I don't care. That itself is something stubbornness, because you are rejecting again the one who it's not those gods, but there should be a God that is in reality, but you rejected him. So that rejection is punishworthy.
Okay, so you said that basically people who did not have God aren't happy, or you said that there was some association saying that if you don't believe in God, there's some sort of unhappiness.
If someone moves away from the path of God, God will constrict their life. This is a punishment they get because they're self-inflicted punishment.
Okay, so you believe that like the happiness that somebody experiences in Islam is not based on the actions. Like, okay, let's say
true contentment and happiness can only come from the remembrance of God. True contentment and happiness. Everything else, when people take drugs, right?
Yes.
How long does it last?
Very shortly.
Very shortly. That's not true happiness. True happiness, if you have a good friend, the happiness that you have with this companionship and friendship compared to taking a drug, it's not even comparable.
Right.
Yeah. So we're talking about when it comes to if you really remember God and accept Him and so on, the happiness that you get, that's the true contentment. But everything else is.
So how I understand things is that let's say somebody was in prison, right, and they were a Muslim, right, and they were not allowed to pray, they were not allowed to do any form of worship, right, but they understood God, they were still Muslim intellectually, right? Then let's say somebody who's out free in society, right, they are able to pray, they are able to have a community, they are able to have these things. I would say that person is happier, right, than the person in prison. And I would say the reason they're happier is because they're able to do all these things. They're able to have association, they're able to pray, and they're able to have all these mental practices. They're able to transform their lives.
No, I don't see the disconnect or connection between these two. Someone who went to prison, if they have been committing a crime, so they are actually now being rehabilitated in a punitive system.
Well, I would say that, let's say they're being persecuted.
Yeah, they're being persecuted. So they're now undergoing a punishment in which, if they're still practicing, of course they're practicing and then they remember God and they will have some kind of connection with God always. Because remembering God, either in a free society or an oppressive society, still you have people in Gaza. Look, the resilience and happiness in their heart and contentment in their heart because they have God, right? Doesn't matter if you take their freedom away, if you destroy their homes and so on, you cannot take away God from them and the happiness from them.
But do you think there's a difference? Do you think there's a difference in their happiness? Doing the actions versus not being able to.
No. Happiness can be in different types and categories and so on.
Because
what I talked about, the true contentment is in the remembrance of God, because that's when you know the truth, and the truth really freed you from all of these doubts. Because whenever you have doubts in your mind, that's when the problem starts. You are not truly not stress, anxiety, depression, all of these things are mental state of health or not health, mental health issues, right? When you know the truth and you have God as the truth, the center, the epicenter of truth, and you have God and connected with Him, then this is the happiness that I'm talking about, the connection, and it destroys and eliminates and annihilates all of these doubts and anxieties and fears and so on. So for example, whatever happens in my life, because I know I am a worshipper of God, a servant of God, God is in control and He knows what's good for me and what for me, whatever happens is in the plan of God, I'm happy. I should not have any anxiety and I should not have any depression, because why? This depression and anxiety cannot be an Islamic thing. Someone who understands Islam, they should not have any depression. They should not have any anxiety. They can have sorrow because this is something that you feel because you've lost something, but why should you be worried and concerned? I seriously doubt why Muslims, for example, would have undergone this mental health problem of depression and anxiety. Seriously, I question that.
Really?
Yep.
Because you think it's the intellectual part? Because I would say, I think it's in the practice.
No, I'm saying the intellect makes how people behave and it drives the emotional, whether you go this way, that way. The heart, our feelings should be molded by our intellectual guidance.
Well, okay. Have you ever tried to lose weight? Or have you known people who try to lose weight?
I've tried to gain weight.
Right. You're like, intellectually, I need to gain weight.
But it's not because I'm not happy with what I am.
But it's not you. I would like to lose weight. But it doesn't mean I'm always going to be consistent in running and always tracking my macros, right? Intellectually, I'm doing something, but my body is doing something different.
No. What I'm saying, the intellect is the guide to our emotions.
Right. But I'm saying that sometimes we think that we can do some things, and really our body is deciding for us.
Yeah. Body can become an obstacle in your decision making, of course. That's a given thing. But what I'm saying is, when it comes to God and choosing the religion, when you look at religion and religious ideologies all around there, what we are proposing is on a system of approach looking at truthfulness and falsity rather than what makes you happy and not happy, for example, okay? Because you can go into a Buddhist philosophy and which says, be kind to every creation, everything of creation, okay? But it's not gonna really give you that contentment and peace in your heart because it has no connection with God. Buddhism has no connection with God. God. They don't believe in God in the first place. So when you die,
Depending on some Buddhist traditions,
when you die, they had to reconcile, like, how do we solve this issue then? That, oh, you come back again. Who determines that? If there's no God determining it, who determines you coming back again in incarnation cycle? You go into this cycle of birth and life, and eventually you become in the state of nirvana, where you become like one with who? A state of total, what do they call it? That's known as nirvana anyway. Nirvana, where it's like you're freed of yourself from all this trishna and dukkha, all this suffering and desires, and now you become totally, liberated yourself in nirvana. But what we're saying is, who determines all of that? Who's in control? For them, there is no God. There is no one who's controlling all of these things. That's why this philosophy is not very reasonable and sound for the intellect to take and accept, or even the heart to accept it. Too many holes. Yeah.
Right. I guess what I was trying to do with that example is to say that if the practices are important, then like what the pagan practices, he's still going to experience happiness. But you would disagree.
No, I didn't say people won't experience happiness. I'm saying the true happiness, true contentment. There's a difference between, as I give you an example of drugs, illicit drugs people take, it makes them happy. People drink alcohol, it makes them happy. But that's not the happiness that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the happiness which gives you peace and tranquility in the heart. I'm giving you the happiness which gives you certainty and conviction what's going to happen to you in the hereafter. In the hereafter. Because those atheists, for example, you're not an atheist, those atheists who don't believe in God, do you not think they always think like, really, what's going to happen to me after I die? It's always in their mind, but they try to cloud and cover it.
Well, yeah.
When they're a real mess, like in a situation when they're about to die, a plane is about to collapse, for example, boat is about to sink, it comes out of the heart, oh, help me, oh, God, help me. Oh, do they shout out to, oh, teenage Ninja Turtle, help me, Superman, help me? Batman, they don't. Who do they cry on to? God, help me, whoever you are. The real state of the internal belief and ideology people have, which is hidden away and which is like, which is called suppressed, comes out.
Because Muslims believe that pretty much everyone has the knowledge that Islam is true. They should just suppress it. And that's why when somebody converts, they're called a revert, right?
Now, what we're saying is people, if they are left alone without programming and conditioning, I don't want to use the word brain dead and brain, what is it called? Brain dead and brainwashed.
Brainwashed.
Yeah, let's use the word conditioning. Conditioning by society, by environment, by parents, by family and so on. So if people weren't conditioned, they will carry on being in a state of fitra, which is a inclination to worship one God and none else. Okay? That's how the default state of a human being is. Okay? So everyone have access to that. But what happens is, as a child develops in an immediate environment of the family, or in a foster homes, or in a hospital, or whatever, prison, whatever might be the child is growing up, that environment conditions the child to believe in otherwise. Even studies have been done to show that children are actually believer in God already. As you know, various studies have been done.
Do you know what's the biggest determinant in whether somebody's religious or not?
I do have ideas, but what's your thoughts on it?
Well, it's how basically the parents act. If the parents are following the religion, they're able to basically imbue the values and show that they are being righteous in their ways. That is the biggest determinant.
Yeah, so there are various factors in how people turn up religious, okay? How we're conditioned. So this is called education. So whoever is imparting education with understanding will stick with you more. And if they're not educating with understanding and they're like forced, I'm forcing you, okay, don't eat this. And then when I'm not around, he says, I'm gonna eat this now. No, he's not around. So this is what we're saying. Islam gives us this educational system with understanding, so that as you as you accept it yourself and inherently, accommodate that in your life, then you become religious. If you don't, look what happened to Taliban did in Afghanistan, right? Initially it was like a society in which do whatever. Taliban came along, for example, and they started forcing people, to do things. people were doing this out of fear in
Yeah.
many cases.
Yeah.
Right? This is my humble criticism to Talibani, the approach, okay?
Yeah.
I may be wrong, but this is what I think what happened. And then when they were off power again, what happened? People reverted back.
Yeah.
The same as they were before. It was not lasting. It didn't last long because it was forced upon them.
Yeah.
But when, after that, they tried again in a different way,
Yeah.
and people started thinking differently. It started changing because now you're giving people the understanding of why so. So if I tell you, for example, why stealing is wrong, rather than tell you don't do it, don't steal,
Yeah.
why wrong will make you not to steal rather than simply saying don't steal. Somebody told you of an authority, your parents, your teachers, or the police, whatever. Yeah? So that's what Islam tells us. If you can understand
Yeah.
the injunctions why, the prohibitions why, the commands why, then you will be in a better equipped, better empowered to connect with God better. And that's why the Quran, the guidance of God didn't just come from heaven, loves and kisses to every individual. It came to a prophet, a messenger of God, upon him be peace, who became the teacher to teach people so that they can understand it, apply in their lives.
Okay. So, what would you say to somebody who says, I don't believe Islam is true, but I'm going to practice it?
They can practice whatever you want, people can practice, but truth and falsehood, people need to weigh and accept it by themselves, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, someone can say, I'll do Ramadan fasting as well. You know what? Because it keeps me healthy, right?
Right, yeah.
The example that many people do, you know that,
Yes,
many people
yes.
do, right? But what we're saying is, you can practice as you want, but ultimately, the decision about your outcome is based on submission to God, willing submission and sincere submission to God. That wasn't submission to God, that was submitting to your own bodily desires. Like, it will make me, intermittent fasting is going to be good for me, because now more and more studies tells me that that's a good thing to do. Let me fast.
But if I say, I'm going to submit to God because it will be good for me, that's the same logic.
No. When you submit to God, that's the prime condition. You need to submit. God, when you acknowledge Him as your master, as your Lord, as your creator, and you submit, that is the requirement for you to have the accountability. If you didn't, for example, Satan.
But no, you said that.
No, I'm going to give you an example.
Okay.
Then I will let you bring that. Don't forget what you were about to say. Satan. Doesn't Satan know God is the creator of the universe?
Yes.
Right. Do you think Satan is going to go to heaven?
No.
Right. Even though knowledge about God being your creator is not sufficient here. What's sufficient is being obedient to Him and submitting to His laws.
Right.
Satan disobeyed God and became so arrogant, he says, look, give me the chance to take everyone else to hell with me, like I'm going to go to hell. So instead of being repentant and seeking forgiveness, he didn't do that. So that's what we're saying is arrogance and pride is like a major factor of people's disbelief.
Okay. So, but you said that submission, being a Muslim is the greatest, submitting to Allah is the greatest happiness you can experience, right?
No. I think you're sort of somehow, fixated in this concept of happiness. Look, happiness can be experienced by people other than Muslims, right?
Well, I'm trying.
What I'm talking about, the contentment of the heart, right?
Yeah.
That's a distinction I'm making.
Yeah.
Remembering God, right?
Yes.
So, in terms of the happiness in the heaven that awaits us, to go there requires some kind of effort, and that is number one, acknowledging God is your creator, your Lord, your master. Yep. So you need to acknowledge that and submitting to that and accepting the laws and regulations that God sends through His prophets and messenger, whichever time frame that was sent. So if you are at the time of Moses, you should be following the laws of God through Moses, given to Moses.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you did this, that God has promised, this is what awaits you, because you are someone who's fulfilling the purpose that you were created for.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I guess my disagreement and what I was trying to compare is that you can do rituals for basically for the benefit of it. And you said if Islam gives you contentment, right? Why would it be bad to say I want to become Muslim for that contentment? If you're saying all the other bad ways are bad.
No, look, people can become Muslims for the reasons of, oh, being a Muslim means you can be healthy, you can be truthful, you can be just, you can be kind. People can have all these reasons. But what we're saying is, you to go into paradise, there is a willing submission on a statement of your heart, declaration with your tongue, and action with your limbs required, right? So there is a condition to enter paradise.
So could you do everything right as a Muslim, but not believe and still go to hellfire?
That's the thing. So we're saying the condition, the key to paradise is the declaration with heart's belief and acceptance. First, it's like this. You have to have a belief in your heart, an acceptance of your heart. That Islam is true, God is the one worthy of worship. That alone is not sufficient. Then the next step is you declare it with your tongue, saying, yes, God, you are indeed worthy of worship, and none is worthy of worship except you, and Prophet Muhammad is the messenger of God. Okay? That declaration is the key to paradise. But that is not also something that would give you a free access, because you still have to do actions with your limbs. And these actions will determine, which levels of paradise you're going to or not, or you're going to go to hell because of wrongdoing. So if God commands you to do something and you didn't do that, that is also a crime. If God prohibits you from doing it and you did it, it's a crime. So crime is not something, whatever God prohibits and you doing it is a crime. Crime is what God commanded you and you didn't do it. That's also crime, meaning sin in the sight of God, right? So when you don't do your obligations, it's a sin. When you do things which are prohibited, it's also a sin. So when people don't do the righteous actions appropriately and they don't repent of it, God may punish them in hellfire for millions and zillions and trillions and quintillions and Googleplex years, for example, right? But because you had the key to paradise, which is declaring, testifying that none is worthy of worship except God, and Prophet Muhammad is the messenger of God, then eventually you will return to paradise after this rehabilitation or cleansing in hellfire.
Wait, so hell ends? No.
A believer who made that declaration with all sincerity, truthfulness, even if they were punished for their wrong actions in this life and punished in hellfire, they will not remain in hellfire forever. They will come out of hellfire, those believers, and they will be in paradise. Those who were not believers and they associated partners with God, pagans and associated people who associate partner with God, hellfire is their final abode and never are they going to come out of it. So they mean they will never come out of hellfire, they will remain there forever and forever. وَمَا هُمْ بِخَارِجِينَ مِنْهَا. This is what the Quran says. They will remain there and they will not come out from it. But if people repented of this associating partners with God before their death, then this is not the major crime that is going to lead them to hellfire forever and forever. So even if they went to hellfire, it's not going to be their final eternal abode. Because the only unforgivable sin that will make you in hellfire forever and forever and forever, when I say forever, that's it. It's one way, no coming out. That's associating partner with God. Like when somebody says God has a daughter, God has a son, God has a mother, God has whatever, and they said this is also God, and they give the gratitude and the worship what God has a right of and give it to someone else, that's worship. And associating partner with God in that worship.
So this is interesting. So if somebody so why wouldn't you require all babies to say, like, I submit to Allah?
Babies are already submitting, but they just need to grow up and have the faculty of discernment, faculty of intellect. When the intellect can then say it's right and wrong, they make a distinction. At that point, they're accountable. Before that, they're not accountable. You have to reach the age of accountability.
Right. So if they say, oh right, yeah, okay, you guys believe in the age of accountability. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so person at the age of accountability says, I believe, I submit to Allah, all those things, right? And then leads a terrible life, right? You're saying that they'll eventually...
What do you mean by terrible life? Disobeying God or...
Disobeying God, murdering people, all the bad stuff, right?
Okay.
Eventually they'll get hellfire, but eventually it'll end.
Because, look, actions can be action of the heart, action of the tongue, and action of the limbs, right?
Okay.
Actions.
Yeah.
The worst action that you can commit, worst action, as I said, which is associate partners with God. And the highest actions in terms of its goodness and righteousness and merit is declaring and submitting with willful acceptance that there is none worthy of worship except God alone. So if God were to judge people in a day of judgment and put in a scale all your actions, good and bad, in the scale, that declaration of your truthful acceptance of your heart and declaration of your tongue, that La ilaha illallah, that will outweigh every actions that you've done. You've lied, you've cheated, whatever, because this is something that's so heavy in this scale, right? So this is what will be something that your outcome will be like, you'll be in heaven. But God may decide, for example, in between what you have done. I mean, God is the one who's just. He doesn't let any injustices go unnoticed, and He will exercise His justice and His mercy. This is the only being that can exercise justice and mercy appropriately. We cannot. You know, we will be deficient in exercising that. So God, in His wisdom and in His mercy, He will exercise His justice and He will implement that justice, and no injustice will be done. So if He's merciful to someone, because He knows through His justice that that person is worthy of His mercy, and He might not punish that individual for some of the things he's done, and God forgives them. Or He punishes them because through His justice He knows that this person is worthy of His punishment. So any evil things that people done and still believed in it, as I said, they may be punished through God's justice for so long that these people would never even wanted, like, I wish I've not done that, but they'll go through this punishment. But eventually, after having that punishment taken, they'll come out and they'll be into paradise because of the key to paradise, La ilaha illallah and Muhammad Rasulullah, for example. So it's important for us to have the right belief and do the right actions. So belief and actions come together, and there's a balance between them. Actions without belief is meaningless. Belief without action is not going to help. But if people didn't have the opportunity but believed, so God tells us someone who accepts Islam and dies straight away, for example, while their previous actions that they have done, they can be taken. They will, increased, rewarded through this action. They will be deposited in their account and so on. Even though they haven't done any actions, just became a Muslim and that's it. Some people say, oh, he's done all these things and didn't do anything, but just that action itself is so merit in terms of its weight, as I mentioned to you. If you put that in the scale, it will outweigh everything. But they also had actions that have done. Good actions will be taken, the bad actions will be wiped out. Converted to good actions. Can you imagine now your scale? So Islam showing justice and mercy at the same time.
I know I've taken a lot of your time.
No. We are here to ask and answer your questions.
Because it's really fascinating. I'm interested. I just have one more question.
Ask as many as you want. We are here, don't worry. And ask my brother Nazan here.
I'm just curious, what are the Muslim perspectives on evolution?
So we say categorically, human beings are not evolved from a pre-existing ancestor. God created Adam from the earth, and blew into him the life.
Yeah.
Adam became alive. So he doesn't have a physical ancestor.
Yeah.
Like he is not born off another parents.
Yes.
Evolution doesn't say that. Evolution says we all came from a pre-existing parents. So we have our ancestors, the apes have our ancestors, and there's a common link and common origin. We don't come from monkeys, but the apes and orangutans and gorillas and so on, we seem to have a common ancestor from which this lineage is delineated.
Yes.
That's what evolution says. Okay? But when it comes to Adam, Islamic text is very clear. Because we believe not in naturalism, we believe in everything in this world, which includes supernaturalism, miracles. So this was an act of miracle that God created. We believe, for example, the creation of Jesus Christ, the Son of Mary, without a father being involved, from a mother alone. Science at this very minute still is struggling to understand how you can get a human male with X and Y chromosome from an XX, from a mother. Where did Y chromosome come from? We say it's a miracle. Right. It's a divine intervention. Okay? Not like the Christians who believe God provided the Y chromosome. Of course not. We don't believe God provided the Y chromosome. God created Jesus Christ as a human being, human male. Okay? That's the miracle that we believe in. Evolution operates under a certain paradigm called methodological naturalism. Okay? They don't have any room for supernaturalism or God and so on and so forth. That's a total different operating paradigm. And that's why we say evolution, it has it's a good model of explaining things, but it's faulty and fallacious in various ways and aspects. Because you cannot have human beings with intellect to believe in a process without a processor, an organizer having this process in place, organizing. They believe the process just happened.
So
makes no sense.
I'm more or less asking from like a Quranic, like I want to understand why the Quran says this. So
Quran narrates the truth. That's why it says this.
Okay, no, but I'm saying, like, let's say, so some Christians say that evolution was a natural process. God came in, he took a Neanderthal, put a brain in it, right, and then created a new creation. Why would that not be okay? Because that is a miracle, right? We're taking a Neanderthal and...
but for us, God didn't just create a brain on it. He created human beings from clay.
Right.
And then that clay was lifeless. God breathed into him the spirit, life, and that became life. So we can clearly see this is unlike any evolution or any models of evolution. So we cannot accept evolutionary paradigm when it comes to Adam. So absolutely not. But in terms of anything else, for example, because the Islamic text is quite silent on this, so how the process came about, whether this is like, one gave rise to the other through God's instruction, could have happened. We are silent on that. We have no issues or quarrels in terms of animal evolution and so on, because Islamic text is silent. It's not something that we have to say like, oh, we reject this. We can be methodologically neutral in here. We have no issues. But when it comes to Adam, the human progeny, we are very strict in saying this is the way the Quran describes وَبَدَأَ خَلْقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ طِينٍ. I think this is how the ayah goes. And God started the beginning of creation of human beings from clay.
So this gives me another question. So how do you decipher, I guess, what could be poetry or meta? Because people 2,000 years ago don't describe events how we describe them today, right? There's a different set of positions. Why couldn't you say that the clay is basically saying from the ground, that God is creating humans from the ground? Why couldn't you say that's an expression?
But the description is such that there is no ambiguity, that it's not something that he had a father. He says, this is the beginning of creation of Adam, this is how he is created. So whether clay means something of the soil and Adam and so on and so forth, but it excludes the understanding that he's actually a progeny and he became a baby and grew and so on and so forth. The text is quite clear. That's how it's excluded.
And just because I'm asking this question because I want to see how I guess Islam deals with, like, I guess outside sources. So let's say basically there was an academic who said, I've been looking at this use of the term clay, I've been looking at the Arabic, and I've been looking at the surrounding nations, right? And I think that when he means clay, he means up from the ground, and this is what all the academics say. Would you say, I don't agree with those academics,
Let me just briefly mention to you how we do exegesis of the Quran,
okay,
right?
Yeah, I'm interested in that, yeah.
So, there are verses in the Quran. God says, for example, He brought you from the earth like a nabatan. أَنْبَتَكُم مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ نَبَاتًا. He brought you from the earth like a plant, how plants coming out from it. Okay? The scholars have explanation of what it means and so on. Some people think like, oh, that means maybe you've evolved from the earth and so on and so forth. There are many elements like this. But, and like God says, okay, He created you in stages. Yeah? خَلَقَكُمْ أَطْوَارًا. He created you in stages. But still, because you have text which are, we call muhkam, okay, clear, and texts which are called mutashabih. So clear and ambiguous. The clear always takes the precedence. The rules of exegesis is the clear verses will take precedence over any unclear verses. Okay? Yeah. So when they made or make exegesis of the Quran, what do they look at first? The Arabic language. And what the early Muslims, look how clever these people were. Early Muslims realized that to fall, or to prevent ourselves from the problem of exegesis, making an interpretation which is not really an exegesis, right? Okay. Saying like it says electricity when it doesn't. They preserve the Arabic language along with the Quran. So that when they wrote the dictionaries, they said this is the meaning of these words in our understanding. Okay? So when we say the word, for example, the word khalaqa, what it means to create, does it mean to fly, or just to create and to fashion and so on, or create from nothing, or create from something? They had all of these explanations compiled and collected in dictionaries, and they preserve those dictionaries alongside. So we know, for example, even the difference between qa'ada and jalasa, for example, sitting from standing and sitting from lying down, various examples. Even the word khalaqa doesn't mean creating from nothing, right? So if God says, for example, the word that he used, I think badi', right? Bada, okay, badi' when it was like this, then this is originating from nothing. But khalaqa means something that you can create from something that is existing. Okay? So the language has been preserved, and as they preserve the language and the commentaries that is made, they will refer to the linguistic stock of what it means. So today when they talk about, look, the Quran says this, and somebody says, oh, it says electricity, they will say, actually, they had no notion of electricity at that time, photons, for example. So how can you make that link? This is not truthful to the text. If the text said something, we should have had that in the text. So we cannot invent a new meaning which is not intended. But if it's intended as, for example, when God says like, He created for you horses, donkeys, and mules, and things that you have no knowledge of and that you don't know. Now we realize, this is like in chapter 16, I'll give you an example. This writing is so small.
What do you want me to?
Chapter 14, 16. Yeah, I'll just give you an example just to illustrate this point, right? Here. And He created the horses, the mules, and the donkeys for you to ride, and adornment, and He creates that which you do not know. Now, if somebody says like, oh, what about this new species, this, everything is included. At that time they didn't know. Now we realize, dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are not known at that time. But we now have fossils of dinosaurs. So He created even dinosaurs that we didn't know of. So this explanation is inclusive of, because the text allows it.
Where does it say in the text? So
it says, He, what did I show you? And he creates that which you
do not know. Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
So now you realize whatever you bring, this is part of his creation. So I don't need to invent something because God have included that, there are things that we don't know that he created. Okay?
Okay.
So I cannot, this is for you actually.
Oh,
thank you.
thank you.
So we cannot exegete the Quran or interpret the Quran which will go against the known meanings of the Arabic language, for example, number one. Because the Quran was revealed in the language of the Arabs so that people can receive guidance. And the Quran says so. God gave this Quran in the language of the messenger so that he can explain it to the people in their language. Otherwise, people will not even understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
So every messenger that came with guidance from God, the guidance was in their native language so that people can connect to it and understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's principle number one. Being faithful to the language of the text, okay? And the Quran explains the Quran, okay?
Yeah.
That actually is something that can override the meaning of the language known at that time by the Quran at that time. Not overriding now. Let me give you an example what I mean by that. Al-Qur'anu yufassiru ba'duha ba'd. This is the principle. The Quran explains one part with another part,
right?
And so when the Quran says, for example, do you not see how God made this Quran which is being recited, for example?
Yeah.
So now the Arabs at that time, and this is quite fascinating, the Arabs didn't even have a word for the word Quran. To them, what is the Quran?
Right.
Like, globalization is a word that is only known today, right?
Yeah.
People have no such concept. What do you mean by globalization?
Yeah.
It's a new concept. But it's rooted with the word globe and global.
Yeah.
But it's derived from it. So I know what it is. So Arabs knew the word qira'atan, for example, iqra, read, recite, and so on. But they had no word in their linguistic stock which is called Quran. So what the Quran did, it explained what it is. That it is a book, it's a revelation, and it's recital, and it's being recited.
Yeah.
So now they realize what it means. So the Quran, in fact, derived a new word for them to now come into use and an application. So even the word surah.
Yeah.
The Quran has 114 surahs or chapters, right?
Yes.
The surah, they knew the meaning they knew in their linguistic stock is like a fence.
Right.
It was never understood in their poetry or their prose as a chapter, like a thematic unity of a book. Okay. And the Quran explained it. This is how he revealed the surah and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And now it becomes a thematic unity of the Quran. Even the word ayah, which is a smallest unit of a surah.
Yeah.
Okay? To them, the ayah wasn't what the Quran is saying. Ayah becomes now in the Quranic context with a new meaning. That ayah is like a sign, a miracle, an evidence, and so on and so forth. So the Quran introduces words and explains the meaning, so it becomes the linguistic stock within that. It's only possible by the Quran then, at that time, how it did it. We can't invent a new word, a new meaning to it, because it's what it did. So the first principle of exegesis of the Quran is Quran explains the Quran. Okay. And then comes how the Prophet explained it through how the Quran gave us these instructions and so on. So the Prophet will give us the clarification of the intended meaning. For example, are you okay? Are you in a rush with me?
No, sorry.
Okay, no.
Yeah.
For example, the Quran says, Aqimus Salah.
Yeah.
Establish prayer. Even the word Salah to them is a new, because they didn't know what this Salah means as a ritual prayer. The Quran introduced it, and the Prophet explained it. And the Quran gives a sudden understanding of it, like there's going to be bowing down and prostration and uttering words of gratitude and remembrance. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he explained what is Salah, how many units Salah is, how you start, how you end. Is it 2 units or 3 units or 4 units? What do you say when you sit down? Is it sitting down? Is it just prostration? Do you do prostration first or sitting? All of these things, the Prophet explains it. So he explains what it means to be doing Salah to the Prophet, making Salah to the Prophet, making this worshipping of a particular ritual. He explains it. So his explanation now becomes our understanding of what this means. And then of course comes the other forms which are lesser than that. But these are the two things. Because the Quran says whenever you're in dispute between what it means, right? The best interpretation is of course interpretation of God and His Messenger. There cannot be any better explanation than that, or any better explanation. Ahsanu ta'wila. There cannot be anything ahsan than that, anything better than that. The best and the most clear explanation, best explanation when you have a dispute is when God and His Messenger explains it.
Okay.
That's how exegesis is done, so that we don't fall into the error of making things ourselves and saying, oh, Quran talks about dinosaurs, but it doesn't.
Okay.
Dinosaurs can be included in what we don't know that God created, but Quran doesn't specify dinosaurs per se. Okay? So anyone writes the word dinosaur in there, substituting the word cow, there will be an error.
Right.
Because it says Baqarah, which is not a dinosaur.
Right.
The word Baqarah, the second chapter in the Quran called Surah Baqarah, which is the surah of a cow translated in English, it's not a dinosaur. Anyone who translates as a dinosaur, they're in the wrong. Because Baqarah was not known as a dinosaur at that time in any way, shape or form. Okay? That's as far as my understanding goes.
Okay. Sounds good. That's all the questions I have. It was lovely talking to you.
Lovely talking to you. What's your name again?
Trey.
Trey. I'm Mansur. Pleasure speaking to you. Perhaps we speak again and you continue your exploration of Islam, and then because ultimately you want to be successful here and the hereafter, right? That's the journey that we all want to take.
Yes.
And let's try to help each other in this.
Agreed.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.